right. So, chapter 2, we are finally on the second chapter. So, lesson 1.2.1, cell theory. So, go ahead and starting now, read. So, open up your textbook and read pages 20 to 23. It might be like 21 to 23 now that I think about it. So, go ahead and start reading that before we get started, because there is some important information in there that I don't have in here. All right, correction, we are doing lesson 1.2.2, so read pages 24 to 26. So reading pages 25 to 28, not whatever it was before. That was another typo on my part. Okay, introduction. What do cells teach us about God's power? What do cells teach us about God's power? Any one of you can raise your hand, give me an answer. Yeah, William? Yeah? He's thinking about every single little tiny detail, even down to something that you can't see with your naked eye. That's good. Any other answer? Because that's right, but there's other variations of answers you can give. So God's attention to detail, that's one. God's creative design. God designed living things to thrive through the tiniest of structures. And then number 4, complicated organisms made from complicated cells could not evolve from a simple cell. All right, so if you guys have studied an animal cell or plant cell before, just in a tiny little cell, it is very complicated, and just in the structure, there's all these different types of structures inside of a cell. So in an animal cell, in an animal cell, we have a nucleus, we have, is there a cell wall in an animal cell? Those of you who have done that? Yeah, Abby? Nope, not in an animal cell. In a plant cell, there's a cell wall, right? So there's some different things about different cells, but they are very complex organisms. And so that's what that last point is saying. Complicated organisms made from a complicated cell could not just evolve from one simple cell. And that's what evolution says. Evolution says that we all came from one, we have all evolved from one simple cell. And so I'm going to go back to this one little structure I had, right? Don't worry, I'll go back. This little, those of you who watch my video, you could see this, but if you didn't, one thing about this is this common ancestor, that is one cell. And then in the evolution branch, they say that that simple cell has evolved through trillions of years into animals, archaea, which we'll get into, bacteria. So all these different things that, well, this is their argument. This is what you would learn about in public school. So I'll let you guys finish that one up. Finish up this slide. Those of you who have already taken notes on this, kudos to you. Here's the next one. So characteristics common to all cells. Characteristics common to all cells. So this is what you would write on the left side of your T-chart notes. Characteristics common to all cells. So all cells are mostly water. And there's a name for that we're gonna get into. Complex systems that carry on many chemical reactions. There are structures that provide support and protection. And that support is very important because it also keeps everything inside of that cell, and so it doesn't leave it, or so it's like the Great Wall of China. It's pretty much keeping everything inside of it and keeping it from being broken or being attacked by other things that it doesn't want in there. It's the bouncer. The bouncer, it keeps people out. And then we have, so the repair of cell parts. So there's a structure within both types of plant cell and animal cell that repair cell parts. I have no idea. And then store and release energy. Store and release energy. So there's a structure that stores and releases the energy. And then we have transport materials. So there's something that is the transportation system. We have getting rid of waste. So things that that the cell doesn't need, it gets rid of it. So if something is not supposed to be in there, it's going to get rid of it. And then also reproducing. That happens a lot with DNA, RNA. Okay, so then we have, my head's too big. So parts of cell and their functions. So now we're going to go through all the different parts of each of both types of cells, animal and plant cell, and then their functions. So within both a plant cell and animal cell, we have a nucleus. So the nucleus, this has the most bullet points under it because it is a very important structure that everyone should know. So a nucleus, they can be thought of as the cell's headquarters. So they are everything that goes through the cell, they are the main hub. Everything goes through the nucleus before anything else happens. They are in charge. So normally, there is normally one nucleus per cell. This is the only other case, and I added this part, this isn't in your book. So skeletal muscle cells, they have 2 different nuclei. But we won't get into that this year. That's a little more, that's a higher science that you'll get to eventually. I just didn't want to say cells only strictly have one nucleus, and then you get up into a higher science and you say to your future science teacher, Mr. Doomer said there's only one nucleus in a cell. Nope. Mr. Doomer lied to you. Yep. Okay, the third point, it contains the majority of the cell's DNA. So the DNA is mostly inside of the nucleus. There's also scenarios where there is some DNA outside of the nucleus. And then the fourth point, sends out messages to tell the cell to grow, divide, or die. So the nucleus, everything, as you can tell, is going to go through the nucleus. They are in charge of all these other structures. Yeah, Aries?
Really weird. Some messages on some world divided like die, or my ships over time to just keep going.
Pretty much. So if something isn't functioning up to par, so if there's some structure that is not functioning to their full capability, they will knock out that bad part of the cell, and then they will create a new version, and that's where the reproducing comes into play. Yeah, Abby.
And the cells like all get together and make like one big giant cell and get all the thing there.
No, because with the dividing, so that's the asexual reproduction. You can't have any variation unless there is some kind of like virus or bacteria that gets involved. Then it could, but at that point, all the other cells are going to attack that bad cell because it has a virus, whatever. Yeah, Jaden? Is there?
Yeah, that.
Nice.
I got so confused.
I actually watched Dr. react to it. Apparently, it is fairly accurate.
Cool. All right, Ellen.
So you just say you have like a job, and then if you're not doing your job, you get brought in and they can sit down and they're like,
I mean, there's not really a sit down. If it's not working, they're just there's no sit down.
Oh,
But yes.
like
Everything has a function, and the nucleus is in control of it all.
It's
Is a
like-
really good way of looking at it from our perspective. Yeah, William?
It's like, that's,
Exactly. That's exactly what that's the way I like to think about it, because it's something I can picture in my head.
oh, that's a bad thing.
Okay, yeah, that is a bad picture. Okay, now we have the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm. So that is the interior of the cell that surrounds the nucleus and is around 80% of water. So when I say that last point on the last slide that said the majority of the cell is water, that is called the cytoplasm. So the cytoplasm is mostly water, and it encompasses the majority of the cell's interior space. So that's the main thing you needed to know about the cytoplasm, is that it is mostly water, and it takes up, it's all that empty space inside the cell. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So this is the same title. Now we just got a couple, we have actually a good amount more. So plasma membrane. The plasma membrane is another very important structure within both animal and plant cells. So plasma membrane, it has receptors that allow certain molecules through, and it stops others. So this is the outside structure of the cell. It is blocking things, bad things to come in. Sometimes things do get in, but it is the bouncer of your cell. It says, yeah, you can come in. No, you stay out. Yeah, you can come in. Nope, out, out. It tries to keep peace within the cell. And then it also informs the immune system that they are part of the organism and not a foreign invader. So the plasma membrane, that's pretty much what it's saying. It's saying, yes, we need this within our cell because it is good. And no, we don't want this. It's a virus. It's an illness. This is bad. Get out. Exactly.
You made decisions. Is this just
Exactly. That's another good example. It is the virus protection on your computer. It keeps. Yeah, nice. So, and then another thing the plasma membrane does is it helps the cell communicate with other cells in their environment. So when other cells go to talk to each other, the plasma membrane helps with that communication system. Chromosome. A chromosome. How many of you have heard of what a chromosome was before in other science classes? Oh my goodness. Okay, okay, there's some hands. I was like, you have to in some other science. Yeah, so a chromosome, so that is a structure that contains genetic information that directs cell growth. Okay, so that chromosome, there can be deficiencies with some chromosomes, and we'll get into that later when we get into more in depth into chromosomes. So I don't want to spoil one of my PowerPoints. So it's a structure that contains genetic information that directs cell growth. Zoom. So after that, we have a lysosome, we have the cytoskeleton, and then the endoplasmic reticulum, also known as the ER for short. Yep. Yep.
I've been to the ER.
Yep. Not this ER, but yes, some of you may have been to the ER.
I've been to the ER about like 7.
So a lysosome. Hey guys, bring it on back. So a lysosome, that breaks down food particles and old cells and foreign material. So the whole job of a lysosome is it breaks down everything. It just breaks down food, it breaks down cells, other material that shouldn't be in there, and it ends up using that for energy for the cell, which I didn't list in there. I should have done that. The cytoskeleton, it helps the cell membrane maintain its shape, and it's very flexible. So for an animal cell, it has a particular shape, and a plant cell, it has a particular shape. So the cytoskeleton, it helps maintain the shape of both of those structures, but both of them have different shapes for different reasons. And then we have the ER, your endoplasmic reticulum. So that is, it functions as the cell's transportation system. This is, and there's two different types. You have your rough ER, so your rough endoplasmic reticulum, and then you have your smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And we're not going to get into much more of it besides that. You'll get into that more in upper science classes. I just want you guys to mainly know that there are two different types of endoplasmic reticulum and what it does. Yeah, Betty.
The whole thing, or can we just write down?
If you know what endoplasmic reticulum is, then sure, you can write down ER. Yeah, so just write down ER then. That's fine. So yeah, if you don't think you'll remember it, write it down, the whole thing. Write down the whole thing. And then when you're writing it down, you're also getting that exercise of writing it down, you read it, you are hearing it. So those different styles of learning. That's why I try and put pictures in my PowerPoints too, for the people who are more visual learners. Nope, I add memes at the end of each chapter. So chapter 1, but yeah, I will add one. I haven't made one yet. I'm trying to make my memes this year. That's why. Did you guys see the one of Oasis and me? Okay, so we have 4 more. I'm pretty sure these were the last 4. Yeah, those are the last 4. So the last 4, because there are 11 main parts of a cell that I want you to know about. No. Nope. So next one we have is a Golgi apparatus. Golgi apparatus. So that is an organelle that receives, it packages, and it disperses materials. So those are its main functions. So another way of thinking about it is your cell's post office. So everything, or it's your Amazon place. I don't know what those are called. It's your Amazon or your post office. So everything that is sent out to all the other structures or to other cells, it goes through the Golgi apparatus. So it receives all the messages, and then it packages them. I'm not going to go into that too much because I'm not going to test you on it. And then it disperses those messages and materials. Okay. Yeah, Aries.
I gotta give you also like big things like the airports because that's the nature of it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep. That's what I'm forgetting what that's called. Pretty much security, but it's like the baggage area. Baggage claim. It's like the baggage claim at an airport as well, is another way of thinking about it. I haven't done that. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. So we have mitochondria. It produces energy, and it is the powerhouse of the cell. That's a very common one that everyone knows because you know the mitochondria as the powerhouse of the cell.
That sounds like a disease.
It is not. It's far from a disease. Yeah, William?
So you can't get past security anyway.
You can get past the security.
I mean, what if you...
Because that's how disease gets into your cells, especially as your cells get older and older. So as your body gets older and older, there is more of a chance. That's why when you're younger, usually you have a better immune system.
I don't understand why the security takes my water. I literally am drinking from it. You see that I'm drinking from it. You literally see that it's like that much full.
Yep.
And they're like, gimme.
All right, let's move on to the next one. We have ribosomes. Those are the proteins. So the ribosomes, they produce the protein. And then a vacuole, those store material. So everything, they are your storage. They're your storage locker. Vacuole. Yeah, this is one of the longer lessons, mainly because of I'm going into each different part of the cell. Nope. Nope. Skip math. We're not skipping math. Yeah, you guys have had fun days the last 4 days. You guys had a... long.
Oh no, we
No, I
still
know.
have to do all.
I know, I'm kidding. Okay, moving on to the next part. Now we are going into an animal cell versus a plant cell. So an animal cell, they do not have a cell wall. An animal cell does not have a cell wall. A cell wall is only in a plant cell. The animal cell, it has an outer layer called the cell membrane. Animal cells are generally smaller than plant cells. Usually smaller, not all, but usually. There are various sizes and tend to have round or irregular shapes. So most of the time you're going to see that on my next slide, I have a picture of what the most common animal cells look like. And many small vacuoles. And what is a vacuole? Should be in your notes. Just wrote it down. Yeah, Madeline? Yeah, it stores materials. Aries, I didn't fall on you, dude. And then they contain lysosomes. Madeline, what's that one?
It breaks down to oat cells and
Yep, it just breaks down everything. Yep. Lysosomes break down materials in the cell.
Oh, yeah. I want.
Yeah, it breaks down the junk, but it also breaks down good things and it can turn it into energy. And then there are no chloroplasts. There are no chloroplasts. I didn't mention that as one of my main ones in the 11 different functions because chloroplasts are only in a plant cell. And I'm going to go into what a chloroplast is when we are on the next slide. It's under plant cells. Yeah, Ellen? Yeah. I mean, I could just let you guys read it all and then you would do your own taking notes.
I like taking notes. Then I have to
No, you get in college, they're still going to make PowerPoints for you, but they go through it much faster. They don't give you time to write it down. So once they say everything, on to the next one. On to the next one.
She did all the active word stuff, and she would type out 5 pages for every day. And she went she would read them, and then I was writing them, and then when it was time to write them down,
Yeah.
and be mad that we write them down really fast.
Your mother.
She didn't require notes.
Yes. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you guys used to typing and or writing down notes. But when you're in college, you can type them down. Once you are used to writing them all down, once you get to college, I didn't even write down notes as they were talking. What I would do is I would record the lecture on my phone, everything they were saying, and I would go look at the PowerPoint that they would put on their Canvas page, which was pretty much their version of Google Classroom. And I would listen through and take notes myself when I got home. Yeah.
Our first grade teacher, she literally give us a minute just for everything down. So she'll say it all out. Okay, I want you to write it down.
Yep.
It was so nice when one of the kids broke her arm. She's like, "Oh, we can have extra time because you broke your writing arm." Thank goodness. People need to break their arm more often.
you always get
So here is an animal cell. Here's what an animal cell looks like. So here are all the different structures, and it's very common to see. Actually, I'm gonna use my laser pointer so everyone can see it. So this right here, this big structure that is cut into that has a quarter of it cut out, this is called the nucleus. Inside, there's the nucleolus. So that little smaller structure, it is essentially the nucleus of the nucleus. But that's not one of the ones you guys need to learn about because there are more structures that you will be learning about. I will have a worksheet eventually where you have to label things. This is more of a full version. I didn't give you guys, well, the textbook doesn't give you guys as many to memorize at first. Okay, I'll go back in a sec. And then you have your lysosome, so that's one of the ones that you had to memorize. Cytoskeleton, mitochondria. This is a very common one that everyone can usually picture in their head because it has an outer membrane, and then this inside is a very common thing that people can recognize it by. The cytoplasm, that's all this area all this, what is that, brown or is that orange?
Looks like soup.
It's green. It's like,
It's green?
that's green.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
You're way
I was way off.
You're
Okay.
thinking closer to the outside.
Yeah. Okay. And then these little dots right here that are all over the place, these are your ribosomes. So there are a lot of ribosomes that are going to be all over the inside of your cell. Golgi apparatus, that is going to be another bigger structure within. And then the outside, there is the, oh, I didn't go over that one. The rough ER, so your rough endoplasmic reticulum is right here, this red or brown structure, whatever that is. Then you have your smooth ER, which is usually right next to it. And then on the outside, your plasma membrane. Okay. All right, William, I'll let you finish up your last one here. Yeah, Jaden. I'd have to watch it first, but yeah, I'll look at it.
Actually, very nice.
Yeah, okay, yeah, Madeline? Yeah, we're gonna do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. It would be easier if we were able to all engage, but what I'm trying to figure out how to do is how I'm going to, what I think I'm just gonna have to do is do it myself and then show you pictures of the things I did, because we can't have you guys all touching the microscope, because then I would have to sanitize it every 2 seconds.
Don't put your eye on it if you have pink.
Yeah, I don't have one of those, but I might borrow one from someone. Okay, so so I got a video. So those of you who are on Google Classroom, go ahead and watch this video. So pause the video where you're at and now watch this YouTube video. Okay, plant cells. So get these written down. This is the last slide I have for you where you're writing stuff down. So plant cells, they have a cell wall. Inside the cell wall is a cell membrane. So they do have a cell membrane just like animal cells. The only difference is on the outside, they have a cell wall. Essentially, it's just an extra layer of security for a plant cell. They are similar in size and typically rectangular or cube shaped. So that's their difference between animal cells. Animal cells, they're more circular or oblong shape, so like a circle or a oval. But plant cells, their shape is a little different. They are going to be shaped in the shape of like a rectangle or a cube, and they usually have things branching off of them. No lysosomes, excuse me. No lysosomes. Get my face back here. We all want to see my face. No lysosomes. There are rare cases where you will see a lysosome within some plant cells, and that's only within certain plants is where you're going to see those cases. But for the most part, and for our purposes, there are no lysosomes in plant cells. Another thing about plant cells is they do not typically contain centrioles. Again, there are rare cases. Plant cells, they have chloroplasts to help with photosynthesis for their food. So that's the main difference between an animal cell and a plant cell. That's going to be like the biggest difference right there is plant cells. As you know from a tree, grass, a flower, they don't eat food like we do. They have a cool structure within their cell where it helps them take in vitamin D and water, and then they are able to, through photosynthesis, create their own energy through that. Where do we have it?
Where do they have the plant?
Where do they get their oxygen from? Just the same oxygen that we're getting in. So the reason that, so like right now, how we have this bad oxygen in the air, it's bad for all the plants too, because it is not healthy for people or plants.
That's why you gotta go out and breathe on the plant.
If you think about it on the acid-base scale, it is higher up. I can't remember. our, if it's going to be higher on the acidity level or higher basic level, but essentially we are not close to the neutral scale. I should look that up. Forget what that was about.